Welcome to the Games Revealed podcast brought to you by Bunny Strike Studios. This is James.
I'm Tyson.
And I'm Shagwa.
And welcome to another test of the video system that we're going to be trying. So, hello, if you're watching.
Maybe you can see us now.
It's nice to be back in the proper order. That's all I have to say.
That's true. If you're watching.
Maybe you can see us now.
It's nice to be back in the proper order. That's all I have to say.
Up a little bit. Sure. And the game that we're going into today is actually a very surprising one for some of us.
Oh, it's hell.
It's hell.
It's hell.
It's literally not. It's Hades. It's not hell. It's Hades.
So basically a worse version of hell.
I don't know, man. The 7 levels of hell sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, but these Greeks, something about them, they just make it bad.
Wait, but isn't Hades the guy?
Yeah.
Or is Hades the place?
Yeah, I think it's like both, isn't it?
Both. It's both. Hades is both. It's weird. It's bizarre.
Named after Hades, the ruler.
I mean, there's different levels that they go through, but yeah. So this is essentially a roguelike action-driven, or not narrative-driven game where you dive through essentially dungeons until you start over again.
Yeah, it's like total. I've been saying this at least. It's New Game Plus forever.
Yep.
Which is a good thing.
Oh yeah, for me, New Game Plus is like an easy way to get me sucked into a game, and I wasn't even going to play this game.
Yeah, and I'll say for me, it's probably the best game on the Switch. What I mean by that is, as far as the Switch being a platform, this game is perfectly tailor-made for it. It is the ultimate pick it up, put it down, because you always start from the same place. Always. You don't have to worry about, did I catch a save point? Did I do this? You don't have to worry about whether or not it's keeping your game in stasis, because you're just going to start from the same spot, do another run, and hope that all the stars align to get you far enough along.
Yeah.
Get the right boons you need.
I will say one thing that people don't mention, but I think it's so indicative of what this is. It's a family simulator. It's essentially like you just interact with most of the people are family that you're interacting with the whole time. You're learning about your new family. You're learning about your old family, who you are, and you don't really. That's one of the things I think that kind of snuck in that I don't know if people realize, but like you're just interacting with your family the whole time while beating up.
Oh, yeah, it's
Souls.
the truth. The whole journey is to find out your whole family drama. It's the worst family reunion you can imagine.
Yeah. And I mean, it is Greek, so it could be also a family dating simulator maybe one day. I don't know.
You never know.
I don't see the dating simulator thing about it, but
it's not, but maybe someday we'll get a DLC.
Hades didn't even want Persephone sticking around.
why do you want incest in this game so bad, James?
I don't. But it's Greek.
That's true. There was a lot of incest in the Greek god culture, so.
The way, what is it? Athena? Or who's the goddess of love?
That's Athena.
Athena. The way she kind of hits on Zagreus, I don't know, man.
Yeah, man.
They're gonna have some flipper grandkids popping out of that.
I feel like she hits on everyone.
Hey, cuz.
Yeah, does, but she hits on Zag real hard.
No,
well, just to say a little bit about this
Artemis
game.
is jealous.
This one's developed by Supergiant Games, which have a great track record. And actually, they started up as just like a small team. I think it was originally 7 people when they were working on Bastion. And just because they noticed at the time a lot of indie games were coming out, Microsoft had an engine that let you build Microsoft arcade games on your own. And there were some experienced developers, some of them from EA and other places, and they thought maybe we can do that. And Bastion was the first game they worked on, which is a freaking fantastic game if you haven't played it. And then Transistor was one that got a lot of acclaim. I've never played it, but like I constantly heard about what it was and have been asked several times if I've played that game. I have not. But Hades being not their 3rd entry, there's another game after it that I'd never heard of. But Hades being like their 4th entry, I think, is one of my favorite games now. And probably not one I would have played had we not done the Game Awards episode and seeing it repped so well. And from what I'm seeing, it deserves every award it got.
Oh, yeah. And let me just say, yeah, this is definitely not one of the games that I thought I was gonna pick up. I was gonna just watch reviews on this for this one. Watch someone's full gameplay, watch it, because it's on Switch, you get it, push buttons. But they talked me into actually playing it. I played on James's account and realized a few runs into it, I was like, no, this is my perfect game. I'm gonna buy it, and bought it. So I'm glad we decided to review it, because it's literally found me one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
Period.
And I haven't. So I've bought Bastion. I've probably bought and purchased all their games. Never gotten more than an hour into it. Bastion was good. It's one of those things. I think I'd pick it up for Switch though. And so, is it for Switch?
Bastion, they
It's
brought
probably
it out
for
for
everything
Switch, yeah.
because I would totally play that on Switch. And Hades is not one I'd play on the computer or on the console per se. It's one I'd play on the go.
Yeah.
And so I guess on a console that's portable.
Yeah.
Like the Switch.
Bastion's really old, but they did bring it out on Switch.
It's just that perfect sit down, chill, lay down, chill, whatever, and just run through the dungeons. It's really fun for that.
Now, I'll say, because this isn't the Bastion podcast or a Transistor podcast, but I'm going to go into them a little bit. Bastion, I had no interest in playing. I watched Shagman play it for a good portion of it, and it wasn't my cup of tea. And then we were talking about Transistor today, and I can see how Bastion, how they created that and created Hades. It's kind of similar layouts and stuff, but different. But then I looked at Transistor, and I got real pissed off, because it looks like they just made the same game with different characters, different stories, same layout, same menus, same environments. It just pissed me off. It looked like it could have been a fun game, not my type of game. Hades is my type of game. But
Hades is for me.
Hades is for me. I belong in hell. But it definitely looked a little more techno. I like it. Probably got him to Hades, but I don't know. To me, it just looked like one of those games you find on the Nintendo Switch early on, where they just made it the same game. And they just use the same assets over and over. Like, I'm talking the dollar games on the Switch. Yeah. The dollar games.
Maybe. I've never played it and don't know much about it, so I can't really speak to it.
It definitely has a similar style, though.
Oh, way too similar.
Although it is the same artist, or lead art
all
designer,
of them are.
I think say.
Hades is where they really bust out as a studio, and you see some diversity in their art style. Yeah, and you can definitely see that it is very different than Bastion, while still having the notes of the art style of Bastion, in my opinion.
I just felt, because I'll use this, Dr. Seuss, all of his books, same universe, same type of people, different story, and quite different layouts. The houses are different, but you could tell it's the same person that did it. Bastion, I could tell it's the same person that did it. Transistor, looks like they exactly just used everything. They just used everything and made a new story. So that's where I'm a little bothered, but again, moving on.
Yeah, so like the studio is well known for Bastion and for, a lot of other games. They've done very well with their launches and with their games in the past. With this one, it just definitely seemed like a bigger team. And when they went to go launch, they had a couple of hiccups, but it definitely was one of those launches that kind of puts you on edge. Because we watched the documentary, at least I think me and you, Shag, right? Yeah.
I was too busy playing and beating the game.
Yeah, exactly. So you're the one that's got all the info on beating it.
I'm the game master. These guys are the everything else masters.
Hey, did you beat Ghost of Tsunami?
I did, and I've platinumed it.
He did.
Not quite platinum, but it's close.
But we wanted to make that announcement publicly here.
Yeah, after getting shamed.
I got shamed hard, and then I screamed it at the end of one podcast, but I did beat it. It's been a couple weeks now. It's beautiful.
So with the launch, it was that they announced the game and we went into early access on the Epic Game Stores at the Game Awards show.
So it was cool. An announcement and a launch at the same time, which was probably a lot in and of itself. You know what I mean?
It seems like it happens.
That'd be tricky.
I wouldn't say a lot, but it seems like a few of those at each of those Game Awards. They
I'm just saying,
something. I don't know if they necessarily do releases, but
I'm just saying it's like an extra layer on top of just getting your game out. You're like trying to keep everything hush hush and do a release like a trailer and
time it perfectly.
Yeah. It's like the best way to do it, and I think it really, like, if they would have had their site up and working without a 404 error, it would have been the perfect launch. But
and technically it was. So, I mean, do you want to tell the story of what happened?
No, go ahead and tell the story.
All right. So basically Epic Games, because of the way things work on the back end, had to put the game up in the store early. So the game went up in the store well before the trailer was going to happen, because they knew they were going to be in the early portion of the show, but they couldn't get an exact timetable of when that was going to happen. So they're crossing their fingers, checking Twitter, making sure that no one was on Epic's page, like announcing the game before they got to show their trailer. But then one of the employees discovered just before they were going into the trailer that if you follow the link that is advertised at the end of the trailer, which I believe was playhades.com, it didn't go anywhere. It was just 404. And so literally as their trailer is showing at the Game Awards, they're sitting there clicking the link and it's not working. But the guy that found it is back at base working on it, and he gets it working before the end of the trailer.
And I'm assuming the end of the trailer is where they tell you go to this page.
Exactly.
And so they're just sitting there smashing it before it actually gets announced where they got to go.
So in a sense, it was a perfect launch because everything was working when it needed to work when the game was announced. However, that's a clutch move. It was like, we're either going to make it or not make it. And it's happening now.
From my understanding, they didn't catch it right at the end of the trailer. That they were looking at the traffic, and that's when they're like, this isn't. So they had to fix
you'll have to rewatch that. So they had it working by the end of the trailer, but at the beginning of the trailer, it was still down. So they caught it before the trailer started, but like before the trailer started.
Okay.
So and they got working on it.
So was Simon Pegg and Tom Cruise part of that team? Because that's Mission Impossible.
Oh
shit.
My gosh.
I don't know about you, but they must have been slapping at some keys getting that ready.
I mean, going into technicalities of that, like the domain and making sure that the domain's live can take the DNS up to an hour or a full day for that to propagate. So yeah, they were very lucky.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they missed some cells because of that, because it doesn't propagate out to the whole world very easily.
Oh yeah, so maybe
it still would be a little bit of a mess, but still cool story. They're doing great. It's not like it ended up hurting them really at all. It's just
countdown.
It should
stress
be made.
Time.
That's a game movie that needs to be made.
Yeah, like you're sitting in the audience at the Game Awards with your game about to release, and then just realizing that your game isn't live. Yeah. No one can buy it.
Hey guys,
I would be like legitimately needy. The Depends Little undergarment would need to be in play there.
Everything we've planned culminates on today, and we've planned it to the point where it's going to work perfectly. Oh shit, no one can actually get to the game.
Yep.
Oh hell, all of our planning. Stressful moment.
And their development is very smooth. Like they really, like, you watch those videos and they do seem like they're very professional. So it's not like it jumped out of anywhere.
Yeah, they weirdly have like a 3-year development cycle for all these games. So whatever system they're running, it works. Yeah,
full 3 years work before it's even launched. So like when it's done, 3 more years.
It was in early access for 2 years, and they imply. By the way, this is a no-clip documentary, and I recommend watching it. It's got 6 parts to it.
We'll have it in the description.
But yeah, they imply that this took about 3 years as well. Bastion took 3 years, Transistor took 3 years, I believe. Whatever the other one is, Dart or whatever it's called, took 3 years.
Is this 3 years before the early?
So this is just their full on development. So including getting up to early access and then the release of the game.
So start to finish 3 years.
They worked on it for 2 years, and then
it was in early access for 2 years. So they worked on it for a year and then 2 years in early access.
Came out in 2019 and then came out in early access 2019, came out in 2020.
Okay.
So it was about
backwards of what I said.
Yeah.
Either way, the only reason I interesting that all 4 of their games have been like a 3-year development cycle. That's like a nice, neat little bow of a dev cycle. The only reason
I mention that is because that'd be so impressive for that type of game to make it in a year and hit early access. Because I saw some stuff on early access. It was very impressive.
Well, when you have the whole game built from a different game and all you got to do is just put in a couple of different character models. Yeah, I guess 3 years is possible.
You need to watch that documentary. It's going to blow your mind.
It's blown.
So, sorry to break into this, but is there any more things you wanted to mention on the dev stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, so that no-clip documentary, like I was mentioning, shows those little snafus that happened. But I really enjoyed watching it as we're just we're right on the cusp of jumping into full development for our game. The beginning stages of that. And so it was really fun for me to watch and see kind of the inside. And it wasn't very in depth. It's very like superficial stuff that you're seeing in the documentary, but just some of the challenges and how some of their workday goes. And I found it really interesting. Like one of the things that they do over there is every month they have a playtest day and everybody plays on that same day. They play the same build and you're required to come with notes towards the end of the day and talk about your experience, bugs that you ran into, things that you didn't like that you might prefer to be adjusted a different way, just as a player, like your notes on the game. So it's not just from the dev side of things, but just like what's going to make this a better game. And we've talked about that in other podcasts as well, where we think that as the developers of the game, playing the game is hugely important to making sure that you're going to have a good product. So it was cool to see that here, but a different approach than the last company. I can't remember which company we talked about last time that had that same type of thing, but it was a different approach where they just did it once a month, but it was a minimum of 90 minutes that they had to play. They could play longer, but
I actually think that's a really cool idea. Great ideas. Actually watching that, it's like, if you want to build a studio, at least with a couple of guys at the very beginning, if it's not just you, I would watch this to get some notes, because they really I feel like they had it streamlined in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and even though it's a bigger team for this game compared to their other games, it's still a relatively small team.
Well, it's good to have those processes in play, because doing those demos every month, that's so important to play it through without a development mind per se, like being in the editor to actually play a build, because you're going to see it differently, drastically differently. Just because when you're working with it in, let's say the Unreal Engine, it just looks different. Even when you're playing it, it doesn't have the lights built or anything, or the lighting built or anything. So I don't know what engine they're using on this one. Do you know?
I don't, but I know they changed it when they decided to launch on Switch. They upgraded the engine to something else. And I know that was a big overhaul, because you have to kind of go through and make sure that nothing broke while you transferred everything over.
That's a massive thing. Luckily, the type of game that they have, should work a little bit better for that type of thing.
It gave it better. It was just better performance as well. So it boosted the game's performance overall, but also enabled it to, I think they basically moved it to native code, so that it could be more accessible to other platforms. Switch was kind of the breakout platform release.
I really should have looked this up, because I bet you it's Unity.
Maybe. I don't know.
I've that one does so well with porting to Switch.
I bet you could Google it.
I bet I could, but
probably worth the Google. Working with Epic's probably Epic. So
as people who are planning to do like an early access ourselves, one of the things that I found interesting was how important it was for them to watch streamers, and they were watching it is like the day that they released it. They were watching streamers play their game to get that feedback of initial impressions and stuff. But they also were paying attention to, like, they were catching bugs that the player wasn't catching. And just going, we need to, like, they were joking about how, like, okay, we're watching this specific streamer. We need to message him to stop playing so we can push out this patch to fix Hydra and then have him go back and fight Hydra again.
Oh my gosh.
But the player wasn't noticing at all. Yeah. They were just kind of laughing about it. And then on top of that, and this is the part that I really found interesting, is just the reactions and insights when players were commenting about boons, commenting about the weapons, just getting that feedback in a non-direct, which they did have all those things. They had the Reddit, the forums, all that stuff for feedback. But on top of that, you have less filtered and less like aggressive, depending on who's writing the feedback. It's just a raw feedback, guy playing a game and reacting to it, or girl. So I think that was something that we should take a note from, as well as if when we get into our early access stage of things. That we're watching people play and seeing how it's being received by them, seeing what they want out of the game, because that did really well for these guys. They stayed in early access for a long time, and by the time the 1.0 release was the Switch release. That was when the game was complete. So the complete build came out, PC and Switch, and they call it 1.0. But all of that insight came from all the feedback loops that they had, as well as consistently watching people stream their game and play it. And what was cool about it is seeing that they had a user base that was there and ready for when patches came out. Because some patches came like every month or so, but then there would be certain patches that were major patches that would take quite a while. So they'd go a while with nothing, and then they'd go to push it and hope that people were going to still stream the game and still be interested in it, which is kind of the gamble you take when you do early access.
Oh, yeah. And the early access, like they killed it, I think, with the early access. To get additional feedback, and they did a really good job with this type of game. But once COVID hit, because they were still in early access when COVID hit, right?
Yeah, they were leading up to the 1.0 release. So they were COVID's been for a while. So yeah, they were in early access for a good hunk of that. And then when they made the deal to come onto the Switch and to get to the complete build of the game, they were still in COVID at that point. So they actually had to film the Twitch announcement under COVID like regulations, keeping distance. I think there was only the cameraman and the guy that they were recording for the trailer, and that was the first time they'd been back in the studio since they left and stopped going when COVID originally broke out. But wild. At that time, like during COVID, there was a break-in at their studio, which is super dumb. Like, I don't know, maybe these aren't video game people, but like if you are a video game person and you're breaking into, and they were using like the riots and stuff as cover because San Francisco, I believe, is where these guys are based. So they're really close to City Hall or Town Hall. So they're just kind of right in the area. Fortunately, a lot of their main stuff didn't get really screwed with. Their desks, not too many of their personal effects, but like all the instruments that they made the music with, because they have one guy in-house that does all the music for this game. And all those instruments were taken, a couple other things of value. But most of the real assets for the game, the computers weren't too messed with, and the looters didn't go in and just like knock everything over and ransack the place. So one guy was kind of saying like, at least they were polite about it. I mean, I'm not condoning what they did, but at least they were polite about it.
They just had a fever for more music in their soul.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I could think of.
I know, because
how do you pass all the computer equipment if you're looking to make money?
You look at that stuff, you're like, that's expensive stuff, but you grab them.
I know a middle school band teacher buy this shit.
But yeah, they still hit their deadlines and got the game released and all that, despite a break-in, despite COVID. So it was really interesting.
Wow, what a lot of challenges to try and overcome, let alone COVID. Anyone that's developing, working on, and releasing a game during COVID, that's a challenge enough. And boy, howdy, did these guys do it right over CD Projekt Red. I'm just kidding. Drastically different game, drastically different scale. Just a little jab there, but it's getting better.
Well, I'm really curious to see how that one's going to go. They just killed it the whole way through.
But wild challenges to get into. So going into the game now, getting away from development side of things and coming into the game, the actual meat and potatoes of this sweet, sexy shit. They did such a good job with how this game is and how grindy it is, not giving the story away right at the beginning. Because every run, they give you a little bit more. With the characters and the dialogue between them, there's always something more to get you.
Yeah, and like it's a good thing to bring up because there are lots of characters. There's the characters that are giving you your boons. I guess that's technically everyone on Olympus. And then your family that's kind of there in Hades with you, and some other denizens of Hades. But you're interacting with these people constantly. So every time you die, you come back, there's usually at least one or two people that you can have a conversation with. And what blew me away, like I'm 23 runs deep in this game. Like you die a lot. But it's fun because every time you come back, your dad makes some quip about it.
It's hilarious.
He's like, are you done yet, boy?
Even as you go out on some, he still berates you.
You know? Again.
Or if you die early on after doing it a couple times, I think he really digs in. He's like, well, that killed you.
I like too that he'll comment, and this is not even getting into the dialogue. This is just like little one-liners that your guy will say. Like he'll die and he'll be like, I hate that stupid Hydra. But even those little quips, there's so much dialogue. Like 23 runs of the same freaking thing. Not the same. It changes, like the runs change, but it is the same. And then you get these little bits from each guy. Like your conversations with Achilles feel like they're advancing each time you come back. He talks about the run that you just did. Or if you've had several runs, he'll kind of be like, maybe I didn't train him well enough. But like every time it's new. I haven't seen a single regurgitated piece of conversation yet. A couple of the one-liners I've been through a lot of those one-liners. I'm surprised at how many of those they recorded.
Hypnos has a couple. The guy that you first meet coming out of the river, you know, after you die, he has a couple because, I mean, you're going to die a lot. So there's only so much he can say about it. But I love, he'll even comment on, like, if you die to the sisters. Oh, you died to those sisters and this happened. Yeah. Oh, a skeleton beat you up, huh? Crazy. Oh, that Hydra again. Oh, shucks. Well, it's just crazy shit that he says, and it's most of the time it's even new for him.
Yep. One of my favorites was Dusa, who spends most of the game running away from you because clearly she has a crush on you. And she's a play on Medusa, I'm imagining, because it's just a floating head with snake hair. And her name's Dusa. But so eventually she stops running away from you. So that's like an interesting thing that happens as well as you keep conversing with her, she gets more comfortable with you. But then on top of that, you come in at one point, and this just happened on my last run last night before I came in today. And your guy goes up to her and he's like, hey, so I just realized that I've been fighting a bunch of Gorgons out there, and are they your relatives? And she's like, yeah, like kind of. They're like those relatives that you don't really talk about, and they're just like, you don't really want to acknowledge that they're part of the family. And then he's like, okay, so like, I have your permission to continue to just keep mercilessly killing them, right? And she's like, oh yeah, go ahead. Thanks for asking. I was like, dude, and the dialogue is all like this. And then another thing that I love is Hades is the narrator, like of all the things. And so there's a lot of fourth wall breaking where, especially if it's like a memory, like when you sneak out at night, when you do your first runaway trip, Hades will be narrating as you're going into his office and stuff. And even in that flashback, your guy will be like, hey, I'm trying to be sneaky here. Can you like keep it down? Or when you go to new parts of the game, he'll be like, and Zagreus made it to Agaroth or whatever. And he'll be like, you again? He's like, geez, you have something to say about everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is super funny because when you talk to Hades, he's really irritated that you're trying to leave. You can tell there's some of that fatherly, like, you're not following in my footsteps, and he's kind of upset about that, but he's putting out an extra gruff exterior about it.
He's also not telling you anything about what you should be doing either, so...
Yeah, nothing at all. But then he's narrating your whole escape, like all 23 of your escape attempts, and every time there's just these little quips that are different.
Just watching little room. He's like, and this asshole over here, he's gonna be going over here and dying.
Well, he kind of has to watch you because, I mean, spoiler, he's the end boss, so he's got to know go from hell to go to the surface and stop you.
Well, there's two things I should point out with Hades specifically as well that are funny. So there's one memory where it talks about how you kind of got to the point where you're leaving, and basically you had a job to do and you sucked at it. And the best part about that is because Hades is narrating as you go up to these tasks, he's just like, oh, and a normal person would have been able to handle this no problem, but Zagreus and his laziness was not able to excel at this task. Every single one that you go to and click the little, oh, what's this glowy thing button, and you can just see that it's just Hades just being like, yeah, you suck at everything, that's why I fired your ass.
You'll even scratch the dog Cerberus and he'll be like, just, oh yeah, that's a great dog, you know, and he's loving it, and he sat there pissed off, you know, or something to that effect of he really hated that scratch and he's lucky he didn't rip your arm off type of deal.
Cerberus
but it's just like
Cerberus tolerated Zagreus' presence.
Yeah, exactly, like barely tolerated his scratches.
But the one time you'll see Hades like be Hades in the moment of these escape attempts is anytime you go into one of the troves. He'll come in, the screen will get red, and he'll be like, oh, you fool, that's mine, don't, like, leave the troves alone. And then he'll send in a whole bunch of dudes after you, and they're basically like survive for an amount of time, and then whenever they don't, he gets mad at his minions, or he'll be like, fine, whatever, I don't have time for this. But that's like the moments where I feel like he's like, you know, he's watching you, because he's just like, you stay away from my treasure troves.
He knows he's got that shit booby knows when you're trying to sneak in.
I mean, long story long, though, and this is still in Tyson's quote, that there is so much dialogue that not repetitive. They don't spoon feed you the story up front, and it just adds little bits as you go along. Like you have a conversation with your mother, she'll reveal just a tidbit. You'll stew on that because it's a roguelike, so you're more interested in running, but it's enough narrative to keep you interested in what's actually happening in the game.
Yeah.
So it's not just the power and the loot that you're after. You want to know the next piece. Like Chaos has some of the best little bits of information when you go into his world.
Yeah, I think they planned it pretty well to balance it, because for me, some of the narrative, I'm just gonna get bored. I get bored with dungeon crawlers and some other ones without enough narrative or something there to make it interesting why I'm there, and they do a really good job of leaking that in throughout the whole
these
game.
Games fall very much into a fun for a while genre for me, which is why I don't typically, why I didn't play Transistor. Like no matter how good you say it is, it'll be fun for a second and then I'll be done with it. This game, like I plan on playing it so much that I will have Hades decked out with all the decor that you can get at some point, because there's no reason to stop playing.
Yeah, there really isn't. And over time, like, you are doing the same thing over and over. You're running through all the different kingdoms of hell, beating the guys, beating the same bosses. For the most part, they do a good job of changing things up. But it's to a point where it's like you've played so many runs, you get to the end and you're like, all right, I'm going to stop after this run. And then by the time you actually stop, you're like halfway through another run. Yep. And you're like, I wasn't even going to start this dungeon.
That was me last night.
So like, not only is it the dialogue, but they do a great job with the environment and the levels as well to keep you interested, because it is an ever-changing level. They even make that very clear. The environment is the same, and while some enemies you'll run into are the same, it's a different chamber almost every time. And like, you're going to have a different combination of enemies at some points.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll notice it is very repetitive. It's the same enemies enemies in the same one. Then all of a sudden, here's these floating hands trying to chain you in this room, and you're like, where did these guys come from? So I love that, and just all the detail that they were able to put into the different levels of hell.
The different levels, the different chambers, the environment, the art style. I mean, we could go into like
the level, like the levels.
Yeah, there's literally like it's depth, really good depth. And all the chambers, like I was kind of wondering when I first played it. I'm like, is this just generated on the fly? Is it randomly generated? These levels, they're not. They actually handcrafted each one, and they just swap them out.
Yeah, so you'll see a lot of the same, what were you calling them? Not tiles, but like...
Chambers?
Chambers, yeah.
Yeah, chambers,
You'll see a lot of the same chambers, but the change comes more from pathing.
Yeah. The
so it's never laid out the same.
Order. Yeah.
Well, I think they're not... I think they do have some pattern at one point, and so it's really interesting.
They may. I know they have in the coding.
No, because they said they handcraft every single chamber, and it does a lot.
I think what we're trying to say is your run from this run is going to be different from this run.
Yeah.
It might be the same as the run 15 runs down the road this one, but it's not going to be the same every time.
And it's just crazy that they're able to just make it look so good and make it feel so natural and so chaotic. And that's and then like I really don't like what's the second level called?
Asphodel, the lava one.
Really, that's my least favorite one. It's just I hate falling into that lava.
Are you still manning the shield?
I go back. I just use different ones and weapons now, but I've been using the shield more.
The shield bash.
Yeah,
you gotta watch it in that level. That's where I quit using the shield because I was like, I kept going into the lava. I was like, this really worked in the first level where I had walls to stop me.
It just all depends. Like with the shield. That's usually I got over there with a bunch of other weapons, but I still I didn't like the boundaries.
Yeah.
So and no matter what, like I don't like it. It's not that big a deal. It's just I like having the safety bumpers like when you go bowling.
Oh, I know, yeah. But I'll say it does give you this because where I first started was random dash. I'd just be rando dashing. And now I'm like trying to control those dashes, and I think that's totally what that level is doing.
Yeah.
Is it's like, hey man, you can dash for crazy as much as you want until you get here.
Yeah.
Like control that shit. And so it really does change how you even play that game going from level to level.
It's like I've always been pretty good about it, but some of the levels get chaotic, like the witch circles. Fuck the witch circle. I mean,
gosh,
witch circles are bad. But anywho, like you have to mad dash in there, especially if you don't have the deflection buff.
Yeah,
like you're in hot water, so there's no way you're not gonna get burned at least 2 or 3 times. Thank goodness it's pretty minimal damage for the most part, as long as you don't like stay in it. I think it scales because like I feel like if you just get burned, it's like 1 or 2 points. If you're there for more than like half a second, then it's like it really starts coming at you.
Yeah, it's definitely it really wasn't. It's just annoying, more or less. Like I like not having to think about that thing. I can do a bunch of other things. Beating the Hydra at the end was kind of annoying because I wanted the dash not be restricted to falling into the lava. It would have made it so much easier because and it wasn't too bad. Like I'd dash and avoid it, but it still was an annoying thing, but it was training you. Like that whole game is just as you progress and everything, they just make you a better player. Because I've noticed I'm drastically better. Yeah, I upgrade my character a little bit, but I'm also like just a better player.
Oh yeah,
since day one.
Because even if you get all those upgrades, like I've got my mirror on at least the dark side of things, because you can at one point change those as well, the abilities in the mirror to a completely different ability. So I've got that mostly maxed out, but you can still go into those runs and get murdered in the first level, so it's like it really does take that training, because it's like I can go in there and smash all these buttons and make myself strong, but if I can't dodge attacks and move out of the traps, you're really going to struggle beating Hades, because it's a progression. It's, you have to make it with all your lives and all your abilities to Hades with as much life and as much lives as you have left. And if you have nothing, you're probably not going to beat that guy.
Well, the farthest I got was to Elysium, and that was a nice change of pace. I really enjoyed the difference, how the world feels, how the art is when you hit Elysium. Because there's kind of ideas of Elysium out there in different movies and mythologies, so it does it. It feels like you're kind of at that, like, this is the place for the people that didn't suck so bad.
Yes, and the characters are hard, but when I got there, because I got there last night, I'm like, this is awesome. I almost got to the end of that, and I like that world. It's hard. It's definitely harder. The characters the enemies in that are harder,
and the traps.
They're harder, but they're less annoying. I found a lot of the enemies in Asphodel to be way more annoying. I hate I hate the dudes that do the sonic boom. I hate the combo of the giant Medusa head and the rock guy. Because, like, well, to be fair, I never have my armor piercing bonuses when I happen to come across that chamber, which is super annoying because that's when you need it the most. Because otherwise, that's just a 10-minute fight for no reason.
Do you shoot your bloodstones in them?
Oh, yeah.
You gotta put those
I do all
stones
that
in.
stuff.
You use your
really
special on them?
important.
I feel like the special is great for armor, but I don't know. I haven't looked it up.
There's a couple perks that are super sweet for armor.
I just mean as the regular, like with no boons or anything.
All I know is I just haven't played the last 2 levels much. I haven't played the Temple of Sticks much, but like I'm sure I'll get better. It's just annoying because when I went into it, I'm like, I might actually get clear of this level, but I'm like, but then I did worse against some of those enemies because I just don't know the tricks against them like you do with everything else. But like one of the interesting things going through these levels is interacting with the characters, the Olympians, your family, and the relationships you can build because you can give gifts.
Yeah.
Or that gift is what is that gift? Is it a
Nectar, I believe, is the first one.
The upgraded one is ambrosia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you've given enough nectar, you'll start giving ambrosia.
Okay.
Well, they'll start wanting ambrosia, I should say.
Okay. Yeah, and so it's really interesting. I really like that they added that piece to it, so you can continue to interact with them. Maybe even make them more on your side, and you get gifts from it. Like when you give the first gift, they give you back something.
Yeah, it's like a trinket, which I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is overlooked by a lot of players, but those trinkets.
Use them. They're so good.
I would definitely want to get into that when we get into the builds a little bit.
Yeah, that's in builds for sure.
I'm horrible at that, and
They're very important.
But it's just the different characters you encounter and their powers, and I'm horrible at the powers. I really am. I just like, oh, this is a cool power. Does this do more damage? Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. And then if it's like for like your dash and some other stuff, I'm starting to get ones I like more and more, and I'm sure that's the thing. You just have to play this so much to find out what works for you, I guess.
Yeah, and then with the weapons, like I think they got 6 different weapons that you can choose, and they're like some of them like try and build the same, but then there's other ones that you definitely want different types of builds on because they just don't quite work as well as like a melee one. Well, so but. Oh, sorry, no, but yeah, so those are important. I do like that, but it is the characters and the relationships that are really intriguing here. And it's not just the fact that you give them boons and build the relationships with them, because what we know about these gods is that they're jealous gods, right? Even though Zeus is the big baller, they all want people worshiping them more than anything else. So they'll challenge you. They'll actually give you chambers.
Those are fun.
2 of their benefits, and you have to choose which one you want first.
By
and whichever
the way,
one you want,
never
is gonna piss the other one off.
Never picks if Poseidon is one of the options. Pick Poseidon first, because out of all the ones I've dealt with, his is the most annoying when you get challenged.
Oh no, there's so many bad
Are there
ones.
really?
And I think we call her Athena earlier, but it was Aphrodite, the goddess of love. She sends a heart that seeks after you, and it does a good amount of damage. It's brutal.
Those are probably the most challenging thing I've come across in the game, but they're so fun.
They're a lot of fun.
I love when I pop
I've never
into
run
those.
across any of those.
They're rare, and you start getting them more and more as you start going more and more through the game. But take them every time, because the other chamber, it's not worth it. You get 2 boons for the price of one battle, and you're gonna do a battle in the other one, so might as well get 2.
Can you tell when there's going to be 2 boons behind a door?
So in the chambers, they'll put the icons, right? So it'll tell you kind of you'll either get a bag for going to Charon and spending your gold, or like a palm to level up your thing. Well, for the boons, where it does the boon icon, it'll do 2 of them.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, so
I've
show
looked
both
across
in there.
those, but the first time you come across it, you just think, sweet, I get 2 boons. And then you pick one, and then the god's like, I see you picked Poseidon over me. I'm going to challenge you.
Just know I am a jealous god. And then they freaking try and beat the hell out of you. And they've killed me a few times on those. Like, my greed overwhelms my sense of caution, and I die.
Well, playing into that, too, and with these characters is every time one of the little boon spheres appear, or when you accept it, I should say, you get these, like, transmissions from the gods. And I call them transmissions because that's one of the things they make clear at the beginning of the game is that you're not communicating directly with them. There's some type of interference, but basically it's almost like voicemails, but you like can converse with them as well. but they like leave you these little messages. They're like, hey, we just found out about you. We're so excited to meet you for the first time. And that's kind of the beginning of the game. And then as you develop these relationships with them, they get a little more like personal. But every time you meet them, it's another, again, going back to the dialogue, it's new dialogue. It's a furtherment of the conversation that you're having with them. And you just get to learn these gods' personalities. And they're all very different. Like Poseidon, dude, I love Poseidon. Not just for his boons. I just like that character.
And they'll talk to you too. They'll be like, oh, Artemis already made it to you. And I think there are ways to trigger those duos as well, because they'll know. Like, they'll know what abilities you picked up and who you've talked to. And it's like, oh, you're getting pretty close with Ares, huh? Mm-hmm. And Dionysus comes in, he kind of looks a little jealous. Like, oh, yeah, you guys are getting buddy-buddy. And then you know, shit, we're going to battle. Like, I'm going to battle, and I got to choose. So,
I feel like when they do that, too, they give you, like, rare. They're like, well, it looks like I need to up the boon ante, and so they'll give you, like, rares and stuff. At least that's what
better rarity or something, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
like if you come across, like, you took a boon from a god, and they're like, oh, I see Aphrodite gave you this. I'm going to give it... Aphrodite is the love one. We've been saying that wrong the whole time.
I said that like 3 seconds ago.
I was saying Athena for some reason.
I know. I clarified that already.
But anywho, yeah, they'll be like, well, let me give you something awesome too. And then sometimes they'll just, like Tyson was saying, they'll give you one that just like really works well with it, which is nice.
Yeah. So and that part keeps it really entertaining as well, because again, what you're doing is endless runs through these dungeons, killing monsters and trying to just get the resources to upgrade yourself. So it does keep it nice, because if it did start rehashing these dialogues and making it the same crap over and over, it definitely would drain I'd want to play this. So having those relationships, and then the way that they kind of vie for your favor and then punish you for not doing what they want, it's a lot of fun. And it's a neat system to keep you on your toes. But it kind of moves us into some of the other characters that are there, not the gods per se, but some of the supporting characters, because as you run through these chambers, you will come across some people. Like one of them in the first realm is Sisyphus. And he's the guy that's supposedly pushing a former king, pushing against a boulder for all time and eternity up a hill. And if he ever gets up there, it just either rolls down or appears right back at the end. So he's constantly pushing this. So he's one of the characters that are in there, but he will give you resources. Like, he's a big room to actually go, and then learning what the benefits are for each of them, because they'll offer you 3 different things to choose from. Yeah. And this first guy, he'll either give you health, darkness, which is a currency, or coin, which coin you can only spend in the level runs. So spend that coin. The next level, Asphodel, is a gal named, I'm not even going to try and pronounce her name, Eurydice or something like that. Eurydice. So paradise. But she'll offer 3 where it'll upgrade your boons and stuff, and that's a big nice one. Yeah. Like, she'll randomly increase the level, 1 level for 4 boons, or the next ones you get are increased rarity. And then the guy you find in Ethereum,
never found that guy.
I forget that level name.
Elysium.
Elysium. He'll restore all your death defiance. Like, if you've lost all of them, and you can get up to 4 death defiances if you put the right trinkets and stuff on. He'll restore them all. He'll give you 60% damage. So those guys alone, because you go in there and you think, okay, I'm just going to get some benefits from these guys, but they have stories to do with the people that you meet in your realm of Hades. And so they're even running across those people. It's a different communication, different dialogue every time. And it's really cool trying to solve the mystery of Patroclus, because I still haven't figured that fool out. I haven't been able to give him any juice to get his trinkets.
Who even is Patroclus?
He's the one in Ethereum.
There you go, man.
No, he's the support character in Ethereum.
Just funny, Elysium. Just funny story is, I got to Elysium. I made it to the mid boss, which is Minotauros. I beat him on my first try, very closely, and haven't even been able to get to Elysium since. I got there one more time, but didn't make it to the mid boss. But it blew my mind. Like, the runs are so vastly different, because I went through and kind of was breezing through Elysium, and then several other runs, it's like, you GD Hydra. Oh, that Hydra fight is so irritating.
It's so
even
hard.
Still, I've beaten it like 4 times now, and it's still irritating.
Yeah, no, it's I really like running into those guys when you do run into them, but I really hate how it's random, to where some runs you might not run into them.
Yeah, and it is random. You might not see them. And so if you are low on Death Defiance and you need Patroclus and Ethereum, I know what it's called, Elysium.
Yeah.
But if you need that fool and you don't run into him, it's a sad day.
But you know it's not random. This ad from our sponsors.
It's You've never heard this one before. We should probably record those on the next podcast.
And welcome back from that ad.
Hell.
Thank you for listening to it. If you're on YouTube, you didn't see anything. So we've been here the whole time talking to you.
Hacks.
Going into it, the progression system, I found to be just really fun and polished. And I know that we're picking this up. I'm curious how it was in the early access, but just going through and because when I went through my first, I'm like, this game's kind of pissing me off. Am I actually going to be able to make it through all these levels? Because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm going to get good enough to do this. But they really do just slip that in there. And so if you're playing this, give it a couple of runs before and then you'll realize it's not that bad actually. Because if you don't give it enough runs, you're going to get really pissed off and think that this game's the hardest game in the world.
Yeah, and a thing to point out, I think we've mentioned it a little bit, but the thing that does change is your power level as you do these runs. So yes, the runs are the same, but you're coming back stronger every time. You can upgrade with the darkness resource. Yeah, you can unlock some things that help in the dungeons with the gems by remodeling.
Because some will make you stronger in the runs, and some will make you permanently stronger.
Yeah, and that's important because it makes the beginning portions of the game easier and easier. And then interestingly, and I was surprised at how well balanced this is what they offer you for those permanent improvements does scale with how you're improving. So in the beginning, it's very difficult and it doesn't seem like you're reading the abilities and you're like, this isn't going to help that much. But as you start unlocking things, you're like, oh, I can permanently boost my base health, or I can permanently increase the rarity of boons that I find. So like I've never seen a legendary boon yet, but I'm just barely, my last like maybe 7 runs, I've been focusing on resource running. So that's one of the reasons that I have so many runs and haven't really progressed much, is because I'm like, I just need to grab whatever weapon, because by the way, some weapons will crave darkness. So if you take that one, you get more darkness anytime you find darkness. And that's your main like permanent boost stat. So I would have just been doing that, running through key rooms, trying to get more keys. I always go for nectar when I see it, because I just want to see what happens when you max a god out on that.
I haven't done it yet. Don't waste your time too early. Get everyone a nectar first.
Well, the nice thing is by doing these resource runs, a lot of what I find I can actually sell to, I can't remember homeboy's name.
Sharon?
Yeah, no, the other guy, the one in the house.
Oh, the dealer dude.
Yeah, the dealer, the drug dealer.
Yeah,
you can sell that guy and get or other use, like more keys.
Oh, yeah.
You can just exchange different currencies for different things. But yeah, that's what I like to do. So my last couple runs, I've been focusing on that, because I realized that like I just want to get my base level stronger, and I want to get the rarities of the boons up. That's my priority right now. So I haven't really been focusing on grabbing the most efficient boons and combo-y boons, which make huge differences on your runs. And I did that early on. There's some great, like I already know a couple combos. Like when I see that room, I go to that room.
Oh yeah.
And we'll get into that later, but anywho,
so
it's all important. There's a whole bunch of ways to do it, but I recommend that you pay attention to your resources, because that's where your permanent, the only thing you're going to keep as you progress is going to come from those permanent resources.
Yeah, I would say definitely maximize your mirror first and foremost. Spend everything there. Don't trade too much to the dealer, dude, because those prices are bad until you don't need it. Because you actually turn out to not need those things pretty quick once you get those initial ones upgraded. But then you can start transferring or trading those resources for the big shit that you need, like the diamonds and the Titan blood, because you don't really get those, and you need those for powering up your weapons. And there are ways to get them, but it's learning the progression systems, because once you fix the mirror and then you get the contractor unlocked, then you get these heat bounties, and that just makes everything more harder, because then it's literally you increase their damage, like so many different difficulty factors to start getting these bounties. So really it is a huge progression system, but it does make sense. It's just large. So get in there, save the stuff, start figuring things out, and then it'll all make sense.
A little bit more on the progression system thing. And we don't have to dive too much more into this, but I just like how the story progresses. I like how pretty much every aspect of the game has its own like subsystem that progresses throughout the game. So you go, you die, you go back in, you have to talk to people to progress the story, you go sleep to progress the story, go give gifts that can kind of help with the story too. But then like you can build your character out, and we've already talked about all that. But we can go into the progression system of the builds now, which is one that I'm really bad at.
Well, there's a lot to it.
I'm getting better, and I feel like the builds I make, are probably short term good, long term potentially bad. But I'm willing to play this game and just make the mistakes to get the good builds, to figure out what I like to get to the end. Obviously, you found a build that you liked to get to the end that you don't like, though. But
no, it changes. That's the thing, though. It just depends on the weapon you're using. And then realistically, and that's the other part of the progression system that I like a lot, is because they give you, have you guys discovered the fated list yet? The fated list of prophecy or anything like that? So the cool thing about that is they challenge you with using everything. They want you to use everything. And then so when you start using these bounties, start looking at the boons, and then it'll tell you if it's a fated choice. So it says fated choice if you haven't ever selected it yet. And then that way, it's an easy way to start filling out these fated choices and getting the massive rewards for it. Because you get diamonds, Titan blood, loads of gems, loads of darkness for completing these things. So that's another way to keep track of it all and help yourself get a little bit stronger. But the builds really do get difficult. And the only time I've been able to beat Hades has been with the gloves. And I hate the gloves. I hate them. I don't like them. But they are so strong. And their boons and the abilities that you can get on them are nuts. So I will speak just about those ones. What I like to do with those is I like to, on my dash, I like to get Athena's ability that when you dash, you can deflect and deal damage. And I'm not so much worried about the damage as I am just the deflection. So I won't really level that one up very much because I really just want it for the deflect. And it's not a percentage of damage. It's just a set amount of damage. So in the end, it's not a lot. Really worth it to level it up, I guess is what I'm saying. On my attack, I like to put with the gloves, I like Hangover because you can stack the damage, get it up to 5, and then they're really ticking with dot damage. So then you've got that dot damage on them. You're dealing your damage. You're throwing your stones in them, and it just really starts pumping out the damage. Now with the next one I like to do with my special, if I can get Doom on there, I will. If I can't, I'll try and get a Poseidon ability that knocks them away, because then you can once you get something that knocks them back, you can start getting more benefits from Poseidon that deal rupture damage. So I'm looking for all of the ways that I can deal more and more damage on top of the damage that I'm already dealing with. So I've got dot damage on my attack. I've got a main massive set of damage that comes a couple of seconds after my special lands. And then on my cast, I like getting a lightning one from Zeus on that, so it chain lightnings between them all, because with the small mobs you can clear them out really good, and I have 3 casts at this point, so I can clear them all out with that. And then you can also get other little abilities that will stack on those and not replace them. So anything that will stack and not replace those boons, because you never want to lose your Hangover for something that's going to give you a percentage of damage up. So that's what I really liked with that. And then the trinket wise, I would run the butterfly that Thanatos gives you, or Thanatos. He's the god of death, and what it will do is you can upgrade these trinkets as well. So the more chambers or things that you clear, you're going to upgrade how well the benefit gives you. So it starts off with like a 0.08% damage increase, or maybe it's like a 1% damage increase. I can't remember exactly. But then as you level it up, it'll do 1.1 and then, or 1.5 and then 2% damage increase, as long as you clear each chamber without taking any damage. So if you can clear the whole thing, not take any damage, that's 2% damage on top of everything else, all your boons. So every chamber that you can do that, I got it up to 26% damage. 26% damage on top of everything else. That's insane. And that's not even good. I suck at clearing those chambers. But yeah, so learn those things, because there's one that does dodge too. If you clear the chamber fast, it will increase your dodge chance. So, and then some of these trinkets work really well with the weapons. So, sorry, I love nerding out about this because I love it. Min-maxing, man. Min-maxing and learning the best stuff about it really just gets me amped up. So, that's my bit on the builds. Really learn about what they're doing. And then with the weapons, you can upgrade them with Titan Blood and unlock even more things that they can do, and then start claiming the Titan Blood and the diamonds and the ambrosia again, because you can only get those with one weapon. But if you change the skill on it, it kind of makes it a new weapon. So I think you can get those again, because I started getting them again, and those are the only things I'm changing.
I did not know that.
Sorry, a lot of information. I got really excited and friggin' just went at 1,000,000 miles a minute. But dude, the builds in this, it's because of all the different gods and all the different benefits from the support characters and the shit you can buy from Charon. They really give you everything to get good builds. And like Artemis, she has one where all of your attacks, if you attack special cast, you fire an arrow that seeks them. So it's even more damage that you're putting onto it. So it's just, man, they did an awesome job at balancing those boons, making you feel powerful. And even if you can't get the ones that you need, you still feel like a super strong badass. And then it's just learning. I'm not always going to get the best ones, so what can I make work? And that's why I brought up the Fated list to begin with and forgot where I was going with it. But it really is. Choose them all, learn what they all do. Even if you're on your best run and all of a sudden you get a selection with one Fated choice, just choose it, man. Choose it and it'll blow your freaking mind. Oh, last thing on the gloves. Upgrade it. Upgrade it when you get the blood so you can get the magnetic cutter. Yep. It magnetizes people to you and deals so much damage.
It's single.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's on the gloves. Upgrade it. Upgrade it when you get the blood. So what did you build on? Like, what was your, at least to the point you got? Like, what were you leaning for?
Let's talk more about just like builds in general, and then I can go into kind of how I build, but I haven't really locked anything down yet.
Oh, I don't. That was my general build.
Your general builds.
My general build was very, but no. So like, as far as the builds go, that is as general I think as you can get it. It's like with every god, they're going to give you up to like 6 different choices, and so at one point you can re-roll them and get them. But you can have damage output. You can be a tank and get life and just go for life and damage reduction. You can make your casting ability like turn into a storm or turn into a drunken bog. There's just so many different ways that you can build yourself and build those skills. And it's all about, do I want to be close or do I want to be far? Do I want to deal a lot of damage or not take a lot of damage? And there's ways you can make enemies either deal, less damage and move slow, or you just deal more to them.
Yeah. So it feels like a lot of just balancing, where it's finding out what works for the style, like if you're trying to build out a certain way and you have a certain weapon, and then you have, you want to get certain skills that will mesh well with each other, because you can obviously, because I've done a couple runs where I'm like, this is garbage.
Oh yeah,
these are garbage. But I have found that one of the ones I've liked more and more is the Dash Doom, where you just leave behind that doom, and it's just awesome because it does. And I'll just like, especially with the shield, just dash around everywhere. And then I'll dash around, and then I'll like with the keepsake, with the trinket.
Oh, that's right.
I'm just running the old spiked collar.
That's fine. It's good health. Good health.
Have that health, because I tried running with something else to try to, because with encounters you level them up, and I'm like, I'm gonna try leveling something else up. I did horrible without it because I'm used to that health. Yeah. So once I start getting my health up in other ways, I'll maybe switch to another trinket, but I can't go without that one.
Need that spiked collar.
I went with a Skelly Tooth for a long time because it gives you another Death Defiance. Yeah. So on then, because it'll lock you out if you try and swap it. It really is learning on then, because it'll lock you out if you try and swap it. It really is learning those things, because I got a knockback skill where it's like, do increased knockback. I had no skills that did knockback. Nothing. So it was a wasted boon. And I never got a knockback skill because it is random, but I never got anything that would knock them back because I took something that took the one off my punch or something like that, So it really did make it garbage. So there are ways you can get those skills. And if you're not paying attention to what they do and how they're going to benefit other skills and your other abilities, you're really going to get a hot mess of garbage, and the Furies are going to whoop your ass. You're not going to make it past the Furies.
That first Fury for the first several times is rough.
Yeah.
So the builds do change based on your weapons, and I do think that different abilities are available from the gods depending on what weapon you bring. Yep. Not always. Like melee ones tend to be the same.
Yeah.
And ranged ones tend to be the same, but then like the shield has some unique. Like the shield inherently bashes, so you get bonus bash damage is one of the things that you can get. Or knockback damage, I think it is.
Well, and those are the dataless hammers. So those ones are pure upgrades to your weapon.
And
so they are going to be
that's
different.
one of my strategies to my build is if I see a dataless hammer, that's the first thing I go for.
And you should.
It's like, it's the hardest one to notice how good it is, but it also seems to be the most effective one. Like all my best runs have been ones where I've hit a lot of dataless hammers. And those basically just upgrade your weapon for the most part.
Yeah.
But, I typically, when I'm not grinding for resources, I typically do the gloves. I go the magnetic uppercut route because A, I haven't unlocked the higher ones, and B, it's clutch for ranged enemies. It is so clutch. But on top of that, any of the attack ones that stack. So whether it be Doom, whether it be the Hangover, or even Zeus's Lightning, I really like on the gloves because that helps deal with like creature heavy rooms. You can just annihilate, especially if you power that up. I really like to either on the first level I like deflect, the deflect dash, but outside of that typically Poseidon's damage dash is the one I like the most.
You're cray
because trying to deal damage where I'm leaving from is a lot harder to manage. It works well against Hydra, I've noticed.
I'm not worried about that damage. But, I just purely use it as a deflect. Because
I'm using gloves and I have to be enclosed anyways, that extra damage from dashing in and knocking them back, so it gives you room to kind of single people out, makes it so nice. And you combine that with the Zeus's chain lightning just on attacks, just on your normal attacks. It's amazing. So things like any of the stack damage, the damage bonuses are good. I don't typically like almost any of Artemis's buffs until I get later in the game, and then I want that added crit chance higher damage.
Her stuff doesn't seem to be useful as the ones, but she offers awesome damage upgrade like throughout her stuff, the criticals and stuff. So I've actually started leaning a lot more towards Artemis.
Yeah. Well, early game is all for her. Early game I don't like her. Late game she's clutch.
Oh yeah. But so all in all, it's going to be the builds that are going to really take you as far as you're going to go. So learning the boons, learning those things, it's going to get you to the bosses. And I'm telling you, pretty soon you're not going to need the Poseidon dash, because I don't even need to get near the Hydra to kill it, even with the gloves on. You get that long freaking punch on those things from the dataless hammer, you just sit in the back eating your popcorn, throwing out right hooks, and that Hydra's dead. But it's the bosses that really make this fun. So the first level, it's the Furies, and it's Meg, Tisiphone, and Electo, I believe are their names, and they're pretty fun. I like that they offer 3 varieties there. Very smart, because that's the first boss you're always going to see. So getting some difference there, a lot of fun.
It's the one you fight the most.
Yeah, you're going to fight that guy the most, so might as well have some variety into it. The next one in Asphodel, because that's Tartarus, that's the Tartarus Kingdom, and Furies are the boss, and they do have midway bosses that you can run into, but I'm not, who cares. Asphodel, that is the Bone Hydra, and I've noticed, depending on what weapon you're bringing in, they change as well, and they change, because if you have a ranged weapon, it's going to know it's got to have something, a way to get out and touch you. So I like the way it changes, even cosmetically. It cosmetically changes as well. And that one's a hard son of a bitch, because obviously Hydras are difficult to kill. You gotta chop off all them heads.
And when the multiple heads pop out and then they're dropping the bombs that spawn more dudes, if you can't stay on top of the ads, it can get pretty chaotic.
Oh yeah, you'll be swarmed.
But I do worse with the when they all have the ranged attacks. That's where I really get in trouble.
That's if I'm not controlling my dash, I'm literally dashing into damage.
Yep.
Like they'd fire them all around me. I'd be in the one safe spot, and then I'm like dash into a radius of a bomb.
That's where some abilities are nice, because they can cancel out those attacks.
A lot of Athena stuff, if you put them all on her shit, like, you're deflecting everything, but then you're weak.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that's a fun one. Then you go up to Elysium, and then the boss there is actually 2 of them. You got to fight the Minotaur, which I forget his name.
I think it's Minotauros, and he's a mid boss. Because you fight him and your guy's like, you're the strongest dude on Elysium. How on earth are you not the floor boss? Yeah. And he's like, I'm not. And when you kick his butt, he actually just is like, oh yeah, you're strong enough, and then he leaves.
Yeah, he's just like, well, we'll see you later.
Straightforward boss fight, but difficult to not get damage. I've noticed that one's a hard one to not take damage on, but it's predictable, so it's easier to manage it.
That's what I was gonna say. Once you learn his swings, it's a piece of cake. But then you get into them, and he is one of the bosses. But then it's a guy named Theseus, I believe. He has a shield and a spear. Pain in the ass. I don't have any strategies for that one. Go for the Toro or go for the shield guy. Either way, you're going to take a lot of damage.
Never seen it.
Use your abilities. Use call abilities. If you haven't been using the call abilities, use them.
Here's a quick question about call abilities. How the hell do you charge the God meter? Because mine never charges, dude. I've taken call abilities 3 times, and 1 time have I been able to summon it.
You got to attack a lot. A lot. And there might be damage too. Like if you get damaged, it might reduce it. I think once it fills the bar though, it's locked in until the end of the battle. Because once the battle's over, it drains and then you got to restart it. So use it. You see a bar, click that son of a bitch.
So who do you fight in the Temple of Styx then?
So moving forward, it is you go to the Temple of Styx and it's like the labyrinth, and that is where Cerberus is guarding the gates of Hades, right? You got to battle this 3-headed beast. And really what you're going to do there, because the whole time you're going through this, learning, you're giving the dog some scratches, you're telling it how much you love it and it loves you, you're not going to fight this thing. You're not going to fight this thing. It's going to make you run through satyr holes and find juicy treats for the doggo. And then you give it to the doggo, and then you get the boss battle beat notification, and it's like, you beat the dog. And then it's like, but, you know, really, not really. It's like you gave it a treat.
He's okay.
He's fine.
I saw that when I was watching a thing, and I really liked that.
And they change it all the time. Like, it's great. I love even on that stuff. They totally could repeat a lot of that, and it's new almost every time. So then you get through the gates. You've found the treat for Cerberus, and then you could buy a bunch of shit from Charon at that point, like save your coin, because it's great stuff there. And then you fight Hades. First time I fought him, I had 1 death defiance, and I had like 0 life on my current bar. And I got the gloves, the things I hate the most. Bastion beating the shit, and then I kill him, and he drops to his knees, and I'm like, haha, I'm the victor. And then he gets back up and goes Super Saiyan, and it was really hard, and I was like, great, I'm not gonna beat it. And it's like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm fighting my hardest, I'm dashing my hardest, my life's down to 1, and I beat him. And then you go see your mom, and she's a nice lady,
and she's a boss. She beats. No,
she does. She whoops you with a switch.
Your mom's a nice lady.
But no, so those are the bosses. They are a lot of fun. They do change. And every time you make it to Hades, because you'll notice as you talk to him in the chambers, he doesn't really tell you much. You're in front of all of his subordinates, so he's really not going to give you much leeway on what you're asking. But you get him in this final arena, and that's where he starts opening up a little bit more and telling you things. And then until you can't beat him, and then he slowly stops telling you stuff, because it's like, okay, dude, you need to kick my ass before you get anything. Yeah. And then you start getting more. So those were the bosses. And then what's nice is once you beat Hades, he will unlock heat bounties. So now you can go and give all of the creatures in these runs more health, more damage, just tons. I mean, it's a whole list of ways you can make your life hell. And just even selecting one of them at the first time overloads the heat bounty. And it's like, dude, that's too much. Like, you can't do that yet. So it's like, you know, this game is just going to get so hard with those extra layers. Heat bounties, which gives you more reason. And now you met your mom and you want to know why, and you got to keep going back. So honestly, they freaking layered it to the point where it is a grind fest, but you're not hating the grind fest.
Yep.
All of these things that we've talked about, they've juggled and balanced, in my opinion, so perfectly that this is probably one of the best games I've played.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to die because you're like, oh, cool, I can go spend all my resources. I honestly, this is going to sound like a terrible comparison, but one of Tyson's favorite games of all time is Dankest Dunkirk.
Yeah, Dankest Dunkirk is so good.
And this does a lot of the things that Dankest Dunkirk does, but in a game type that I like better. So for me, this is like my Dankest Dunkirk. Yeah. And like all that min-maxing that you were talking about, all that stuff, planning your routes. By the way, the journal, so James mentioned this earlier, you can play and get a feel for things and then learn what abilities you like to stack. But the journal will actually tell you which abilities feed into each other. So if you're a note taker, that's another way that you can do it without even having to go on the internet. Which I'm probably getting to the point where I need to do that if I'm going to progress farther. But
and it'll show you what you need to trigger other things. It's like you got to have this, and then you can possibly get these options.
But that's what I like about it is, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm having to figure out for each weapon, and I enjoy it. Like, it's fun. I'm like, okay, the gun I need to go a completely different way with. and it's fun because then I want to get that darkness bonus. So, and plus, as much as I love the gloves, because that's my favorite weapon, I do like playing with the other weapons. Once I realized the benefit of doing that, and kind of got over my initial hesitancies, I was like, the flexibility in weapons also adds to the amount of fun that you can have replaying the game.
Always go for the one that's shining darkness. That's my goal.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to comment on. I don't know that much about the rest of the stuff, and so like heat bounties, all this stuff.
James studied a lot of Black Mesa while we were getting ready for this podcast.
And to be honest, I probably played more Hades than you have, Shag, because you want to wait until the physical copy.
That's true.
Well, and this is where I got the leg up, because over this whole podcast we've learned very grindy. I got to do a lot of things these guys didn't because he chose to wait for a physical copy, this silly goose. But no, where I really legged up on this is I have a 12-year-old son that could grind the grindable resource for and play a little bit of the story mission, which I didn't get to see, which I was upset about, but it was worth the resource grind because that really helped me get to the final levels of this, because it's a lot of time.
Outsourcing, that's what you do.
Exactly.
In video games, if you play a long game, outsource it.
Yeah, outsource it.
And that's why I was even saying that I've kind of stopped trying to get progress in runs. I mean, I still try to, but like really all I'm doing now is gathering resources because of, like you're saying, how much more powerful you can get. Like you can just straight... If you collect enough, it's a lot of darkness, but if you collect a lot of darkness, you can just straight raise your base life total, which is one of the things that helps you win fights in the middle of the game. And then on top of that, the rarity boost, that's my focus. I want to see those legendaries. I want to see the sweet stuff you can get.
Yeah,
so
you can get some sweet shiz in there.
And then you get ones that bonus damage based on the boons that you get. So that's another one that I want to upgrade.
Yeah,
because that's just a bonus, a modifier, and it's a base ability that you have before you even leave your room.
Yep. So use that one, and there is an ability in the mirror that I would say, because you can have an increased chance of like getting boons or like getting better rarity boons, or you can switch that ability to the green lettering and it will increase the chances of getting resources. So gemstones, money, daedalus hammers, and stuff like that. And daedalus hammers, number one, choose them every time. Don't pass them up.
Yep, legitimately.
Yeah. So before we exit, I guess, because of all these weapons that we're talking about, favorite weapon, James.
Shield right now, but because I'm doing the thing that Shag was talking about with the darkness. I've been learning. That's what I did yesterday. I just learned a bunch of different ones. And so I like most of the weapons in some way. I could see how they could be good. Even the gun, how it could be good later on.
Yeah.
Shield still right now.
Shield carries, dude. Like we have to be real. It's the AD carry of the weapon.
If you're going to be defensive, you can make it all the way through it. I'm so aggressive. I end up taking more damage and dashing off the thing. So, but no, Shield got me far when James recommended it. I just went with it, and it got me farther than I was able to before.
Yep. I'm all about the gloves. Like, hands down the gloves. I love them more than anything because of the way that you tend to get more damage stacking boons. Again, the chain lightning is amazing with that weapon because you have so many attacks. There's bonuses you get with daedalus hammers where you like stack damage after 12 hits or something, and then you do increased damage.
Yeah,
it's just like, it really is the definition of like just stacking and ramping up your damage. I love that weapon, but I'm starting to like the spear. It does depend on the build. So the spear is very build dependent.
Yep.
You need to get that speed up, and you need to get the the knockback on attack for that one is amazing.
It really is good. Yeah. And the long one, you could literally like cross map, like touch people with that thing. It's so good.
The long one with Hydra is.
Oh yeah, you don't need to move.
That's the easiest fight I've had with Hydra is with long spear.
I got very long with that one, very far with that. So
I can say with the gloves, if you don't get the right build style going, it sucks. I hate the gloves for that because it's offensive. Like there's like really no defensiveness to it, and that's really made it hard for me.
Yeah, weirdly, the gloves never want darkness in my run throughs, so like I haven't had to use them for just running around. But like when I'm trying to progress. And that's when I'm focusing on my builds. I've always had. I mean, you do get crap runs like we talked about, but for the most part, once you know how to build, you're just like, okay, this door, wrecked.
With those keepsakes, if you offer them to the gods, their keepsake will increase the chance of their boon being offered. So once you understand what you're wanting, going in with those boons and trying to get the right stuff is a way to do it. I rarely did it, but.
That's good advice.
It's a good way if you want to try and secure those boons.
Yeah.
But my weapon, I would have to say, it started off was the spear, and then it moved to the adamant rail, but it's probably going to be at the gloves, the one I didn't expect. I didn't expect to like the gloves. I hated them to begin with, but I've beaten Hades only with those 3 times. And that's saying something. So I am Muhammad Ali, and the gloves are the best weapon in that game. But the adamant rail is so good. Piercing with hangover attack, or even just piercing with doom on the attack. Oh, so good. My son beat Elysium last night. You guys suck, by the way. And he used the adamant rail with the doom ability. With the doom ability. No, he didn't beat him, but he got to him, and he did pretty good. I don't think he beat him yet. We paused it. So
fun.
It was a good one.
It has great weapons. It has so much going for it. For being an indie game, and it's just they really did. They've shown that they're a mature studio for making this game, because I believe just some of the other games, just every game, it feels like it gets a little bit progressively better, but they really shined on this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's definitely that development time. They killed it.
Dude,
and I love it.
It floated at a 98 approval rating in Steam for the entirety of its early access. So I mean, yeah. But that's how I'll end for me. Like, fantastic game, well worth the money, and one I would have slept on. Just it looked interesting, but it's not my genre. So I'm glad that we went out of our way to play it, because it's amazing. It's one of my favorite games I've played in a long time.
Like I said, I wouldn't have played it. James talked me into playing it. I played it on his account. Literally bought it minutes later. Like, even if you think this game looks like shit, play it and you'll buy it. Yep. So just do it. Yeah. It's literally a great game. I can't say enough good things about it because there's not enough time.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Like, it's a great game. I think most people that like a little bit of grind, a little bit of building, one of those like League of Legends, if you like some of those games, you're gonna like this game. I think you're gonna really go away liking it. And so I recommend it for actually most people that aren't really set in their own play style.
Yeah, this
really set in their own.
If you're still figuring out what kind of gamer you are, pick it up.
Yep.
If you figured it out and you're a chess guy only, pick it up.
Yeah, if you're like me and you need to step out of your RPG corner occasionally, this is a great one for that. So
yeah, a lot of fun, lighthearted, and joyful. Great.
Easy to pick up easy to pick up, hard to put down sometimes.
Well, yeah.
How many times have you been like, one more run? Easy, and then you're five runs later.
Easy to pick up, but if you drop it off and pick it up in the middle of a run and then remembering what weapon you're on, it's like, oh, and then you're dead. Never abandon a mid-run.
One last thing. Last night, I was at 3% battery. Oh, no, I was at like 10%. It's like, low battery. I'm like, but I can keep going. I still have it. And I got to 3.8%, and I was like really far in. Like, I'd gotten past the Hydra. I'm like, no, I'm charging this. And I picked it up, and that's when I did bad, because the next day, like, I think it was this morning, I was like, I'm just not doing well.
You forget the combos and the buttons, and you just mess it up.
So, weirdly, I do well if I stop like at a boss fight. Like, if I get to a boss fight and then set it down, it's a fine spot to pick back up.
I struggle. I
so
struggle.
That was hard. But with that being said, the game's awesome. We all agree. And I think we have all our last pieces in. So we're going to end this. This has been the Games Revealed podcast, brought to you by Bunny Strike Studios. This is James.
And I'm Tyson.
And Shagwa.
We're exiting.
Later.
Peace out, guys.
Play Hades.